Your dreams about the narcissist are not random. They're not sentimental flashbacks, and they're not your heart missing them. They come because there is something in you that was never allowed to speak while you were awake. During the day, you hold yourself together, you function, you stay strong. You move on because you have to. Life demands forward motion, and your mind helps you survive by pushing certain truths into the background. But your body remembers what your mind tries to forget. The nervous system stores every silence you swallowed, every moment you were made small, every time you learned to be cautious instead of open. And when sleep comes, when the defenses lower and your guard finally falls, the unfinished parts of your story rise to the surface. In the dream, the narcissist doesn't always appear as they were physically. They appear as the emotional imprint they left inside you. The confusion, the imbalance, the quiet ache of never being truly seen. Sometimes in the dream, you're not even looking at them. You're looking at a version of yourself who didn't know how to ask for what they needed, or who learned to shrink to maintain peace. And that is the part of you the dream is trying to return. The dream is not about going back to the narcissist. It is about going back to the place where you abandoned yourself so you could survive them. So when these dreams feel heavy, intense, or unexplainably vivid, understand this: they are not pulling you backward. They are opening a door inside you. They are showing you where your strength was taken and where it is waiting to come back. These dreams are not a trap, they are a map, leading you back to the parts of yourself that deserve to breathe again. Dreams are the place where the truth finally speaks without asking for your permission. They take the shape of symbols because the mind knows that direct language would be too sharp, too overwhelming, too fast. So instead of saying you were never safe there, the dream shows you a room with no doors. Instead of saying you were never heard, it shows you trying to shout without any sound coming out. Instead of saying your boundaries were crossed, it shows them walking directly through you, as if you weren't there at all. And the moment you wake up, you feel it. You feel something real that you never had the words for. These dreams are not reminding you of the narcissist. They are reminding you of yourself, of the person you were before you learned to dilute your voice, before you learned to negotiate your self-worth for crumbs of affection. They show you how deeply you had to contort yourself just to be loved by someone who did not treat love as something to give, but as something to extract. And the dream becomes the mirror where the performance ends. There are no smiles there, no pretending, no holding it together, only what was real. You do not dream of them because you miss them. You dream of them because your soul is returning to the scene of the wound, not to reopen it, but to finally close it. The dream is the mind's way of saying, look, this is where it happened, this is where you left yourself behind, and this is where you can take yourself back. And for the first time, you begin to see that the dream isn't about the narcissist at all. It never was. It's about the you that is rising. There are dreams where you are running, and the fear isn't that something will catch you. The fear is that you are running the same path you once walked while awake. The hallway looks familiar. The road curves the same way. The feeling in your chest is one you've known for years. The feeling of constantly having to adjust yourself to avoid conflict, to avoid being punished, to avoid being misunderstood, to avoid being left. The one chasing you is not a monster. It's not the narcissist. It's the version of you that learned, if I slow down, if I breathe, if I just exist as I am, something bad will happen. That is the trauma response, living in your muscles long after the relationship has ended. And the dream is not forcing you to relieve it. The dream is showing you what has not yet been released. There are dreams where you try to speak, but the voice is gone. Not stolen, just gone. Like it dissolved somewhere between your chest and your mouth. And you can feel the pressure building. The words are there, but there is no bridge to carry them out. This is what happens when the nervous system learns that speaking your truth leads to punishment. When love was conditional, when honesty was dangerous, when the safest thing was to stay silent, your body learned silence as survival. In the dream, the silence isn't powerlessness. It is the imprint of where your agency was taken. And the dream is asking a question your conscious mind avoids. Do you want your voice back, even if having it changes everything? There are dreams where structures fall apart, buildings crumbling, rooms collapsing, staircases dissolving into dust. This is not just symbolism. It is your psyche finally telling the truth your mind wasn't ready to say aloud. It was never stable. It was never safe. You were holding the whole thing up by yourself. The collapse in the dream is your unconscious releasing the weight of pretending. It is the body exhaling what it held for too long. The dream isn't destroying anything. It's letting you see what was already broken, so you no longer have to blame yourself for not being able to hold it together. And there are the quiet dreams, the ones where you see them from a distance, where you don't move toward them, where you don't need anything from them, where your body is calm even if your mind is aware. These dreams are not about them at all. They are about you returning to your own gravity. The attachment has loosened. The emotional fusion has dissolved. You are not orbiting them anymore. You are not shaped by their moods anymore. You are a separate being again. And the dream is simply showing you, you have already left. Do not underestimate these dreams. They are not random noise. They are the internal record of your healing, unfolding in layers. They show where your soul is reclaiming itself, where your boundaries are reforming, where your power is returning. Healing does not begin when you stop loving them. Healing begins when your inner world no longer bends itself around them. And your dreams are the first place where that shift becomes visible. There comes a moment when the dreams stop feeling like they are about the narcissist at all and begin to feel like they are about you, about the version of yourself that had to go quiet, small, or invisible to survive that relationship. The shadow begins to show itself, not as something dark or dangerous, but as everything in you that once was real and alive, yet had to be hidden to keep the connection from falling apart. The shadow is not the wounded part of you, it is the unexpressed part of you. The strength you softened because it made someone else uncomfortable. The intuition you learned to doubt because they needed you uncertain to stay in control. The boundaries you let dissolve because you were taught that love required sacrifice. The dignity you placed aside because you were afraid that choosing yourself would mean losing the relationship entirely. And so slowly, almost without noticing, you folded those parts of yourself inward, not because you were weak, but because you were attached, and attachment always runs deeper than logic. The nervous system will choose closeness over truth when it feels that losing closeness means losing safety. So your shadow became the place where all the unspoken parts of you lived, your anger that was never allowed to surface, your clarity that was dismissed until you doubted your own perception, your need to be seen that was labeled too much, your instinct to say no that got stuck in your throat. When the narcissist appears in your dreams, they do not show up as themselves. They show up as the mirror, reflecting everything you sacrificed in order to love them. The dream is not reminding you of who they are, but of who you were before you abandoned yourself in the process of staying. This is why the dream returns to the place of the wound, because the place where the self was lost is the same place the self must be reclaimed. Healing does not happen by moving forward and never looking back. Healing happens when you turn toward the part of yourself you left behind and say, I remember you. I'm here now. You don't have to be silent anymore. The shadow is not the enemy. The shadow is your unlived self. Your voice, your boundaries, your knowing, your worth. The dreams are not about going back to them. They are the doorway back to you. Dreams are not memories. They are not replays. They are messages from the unconscious, and the unconscious does not speak the same language the waking mind does. Carl Jung wrote that dreams are the royal road to the unconscious, meaning that when the conscious self refuses to look at something, out of fear, attachment, or habit, the unconscious will find another way to show it. This is why dreams often speak in symbols. Symbols are the language of the psyche. They bypass denial, they bypass defenses, they go straight to truth. When you dream of the narcissist, the dream is not trying to return you to the relationship. It is trying to return you to yourself, because there were parts of you that could not survive inside that relationship without being pushed down, quieted, hidden. Jung said, "The shadow contains everything that was once alive and true in us but was forced to go underground because the environment could not tolerate its existence." So your dreams are not showing the narcissist to haunt you. They are showing the parts of you that had to be exiled to love them. Consider the moment you wake. The mind forgets quickly, but the body remembers. The pressure in the chest, the dryness in the throat, the heaviness in the limbs. Your body speaks before your thoughts form meaning. This matters because the reaction is the message, not the storyline, not the images, not the faces. The nervous system tells you the truth faster than the mind does. If you wake with longing, the longing is not for the narcissist, it is for the version of you who once believed love could save the relationship, the one who tried, endured, hoped, stretched, softened themselves in order to be enough. The dream is showing the place where you abandoned yourself, and it is asking if you are ready to return. If you wake with fear, the fear is not of them. It is of re-experiencing the feeling of being made small. Your body learned to anticipate emotional volatility. It still remembers the cost of being authentic. The dream is bringing this memory up not to re-injure you, but to release the tension that never had a chance to leave. If you wake silent, unable to speak, even in memory, that silence is the imprint of all the moments your truth was twisted, dismissed, mocked, or punished. Jung wrote, "What you deny controls you. What you embrace transforms you." The dream is asking if you are ready to embrace your own voice again. If the environment in the dream collapses, walls falling, floors disintegrating, hallways crumbling, this symbolizes not destruction, but revelation. The psyche is finally allowed to tell the truth. The reality you clung to was never stable. You were the one holding it up. The collapse is the unconscious releasing the burden of pretending that what hurt you was acceptable. And then there are the dreams where you watch them from a distance, where they no longer have gravity, where the emotional charge fades. Jung would call this individuation. The process of returning to the self after being absorbed into another's world. In waking life, you may still feel conflicted, but the dream reveals that your psyche has already begun the separation. The work of decoding is not intellectual, it is somatic. The body remembers what the mind learned to numb. So, when you wake, do not rush to interpret. Instead, pause. Place your hand on your chest. Ask, where do I feel this in my body? Where is it tight? Where is it dull? Where does it burn? This is where the story lives. The throat that tightens is the voice that was never allowed to exist. The chest that aches is the grief that was never allowed to be expressed. The stomach that knots is the boundary that was never allowed to be honored. This is not symbolic. This is physiological memory. Once you can feel where the dream lands in the body, something shifts. The dream stops being something happening to you and becomes something you can respond to. And the response is simple, not dramatic, not performative, not explosive. It sounds like, how did they feel during "I see you, I know you were trying to keep me safe"? You don't have to carry this alone anymore. When you validate the part of you that was abandoned, the dream changes. The symbols soften, the rooms widen, the doors unlock. The voice returns. And eventually, the narcissist stops appearing, not because you forced forgetting, but because there is nothing left inside you they can reflect. Healing is not when the wound disappears. Healing is when the wound no longer defines your sense of self. Healing is not forgetting the past. Healing is the moment the past loses authority over your identity. The dreams never wanted you to go back. They wanted to bring you home. There is a moment when the dream stops being something that happens to you and becomes something you recognize yourself inside of. The moment where, instead of waking up searching for meaning, you simply sit with what is there. A breath you did not have before. A steadiness that feels unfamiliar but honest. A silence that is no longer empty but full. This is the beginning of your return. Healing does not arrive as a single revelation. It arrives as a series of quiet recognitions. You notice you no longer replay conversations in your head. You notice you no longer feel the need to prove what happened. You notice you stop explaining your pain to people who are not capable of holding it. This is not forgetting. This is selfhood rerouting itself in your nervous system. Carl Jung wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." You have done exactly that. The dream brought you to the darkness, not to drown you in what happened, but to show you that you can stand inside it without losing yourself anymore. The darkness is no longer a threat. It is simply where truth waited for you. And now there is a shift, subtle but irreversible. You stop trying to be understood by the person who hurt you, and you stop waiting for an apology that was never going to be given. You stop longing for closure from someone who was never capable of giving it, because closure was never going to come from them. Closure comes the moment the story stops living in your body as a wound, and starts living in your memory as something that shaped you but does not define you. The dream did not give you answers. It gave you yourself back. And when you return to yourself, something remarkable happens. You begin to love differently. Not by guarding your heart, by recognizing who has earned the right to come near it. Not by building walls, but by building boundaries that do not shake when challenged. Not by shrinking to fit someone else's world, but by choosing to stay whole in your own. Your silence is no longer the silence of being suppressed. It is the silence of someone who knows their value is not up for negotiation. Your calm is no longer dissociation, and is the calm of someone who is no longer in danger. And your dreams, once a battlefield, become a doorway back to the home that was always waiting for you inside your own chest. You did not lose yourself. You were waiting for the moment you finally had the strength to come back. Now you have. Take a moment, not to think, just to breathe. You've walked back through memories your mind tried to bury. You've listened to the parts of yourself that had been silent for a long time. And if you feel different right now, even in a way you can't explain, that is not an accident. That is you returning to yourself. This journey is not about understanding the narcissist. It never was. It's about remembering who you were before you learned to dim your own light just to be loved. If this resonated, stay with this space a little longer. There are more truths waiting, more pieces of yourself to reclaim, and you don't have to walk that path alone. You can stay here, you can rest here, and when you're ready, you can rise. Welcome back to yourself, and welcome home.